Hello everybody and welcome back to another Logan Blackman Show YouTube video. Hope you all have had a fantastic week since the last time we spoke to each other, because obviously we didn't see each other last week, so we just recorded audio for the final quarterback prospect rankings and the live draft reactions. And it was live at one point in time. Obviously it wasn't live when I posted it, but it was live at one point in time, so that's why it counts. That's why it counts as live one. This one though is obviously not live. It's been a week since the first round of the 2026 NFL draft has happened, so I thought it would be a good time to give some calm down reactions and get my thoughts all together for the draft and give an idea of what I think going forward. Now, I'm not going to give any grades in the first round because I think it's very counterproductive to say a team has got a bad draft at this point in time right after the draft is over. Maybe they do wind up being a bad draft class, but I want to give it some time before I say something's going to be bad. I'm fine with saying something's going to be good because at least that's a positive. Like, we're being positive here. I saw a draft grade the other day that gave the Los Angeles Rams an E for exiled. Come on, that's not really, we're not doing anything there. Let's calm down a little bit. Maybe the Rams draft class turns out to be great. Maybe it turns out to be great. We don't know. It might turn out bad. They might need to be exiled, but let's not sit here and go like, oh, this is just a terrible draft right now, the day after the draft. I don't think that adds anything. I think that's very counterproductive, but we're going to give thoughts and opinions, and I don't think that means you shouldn't give your thoughts and opinions about the draft, but I think adding a grade to it or a score to it, I just don't see what a lot of stuff, I don't know what that really does here. Regardless of all of that, this is a little bit of a recap, again, a week after the draft, and before we get into anything, let's go over the housekeeping items first. Make sure to check out all the links down in the description below. Check out all the different links to the social media accounts, the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, the blog post at theloganblackmanshow.com. I'll leave a link to Mock Draft 3.0 down there as well. I got 9 picks right in Mock Draft 3.0, which I like to think of it as a baseball batting average. I will take 9 for 32, especially in a year where most people would sit back and go, this is going to be one of the most unpredictable drafts of all time. There's going to be trades galore. There was a lot of trades in the back half of the first round. I don't really think, and this is just from my perspective, I can't sit here and tell you how to think and everything, but there wasn't that really a lot of big wow moments that everybody kept talking about, like, go, get ready to be shocked, get ready for this. I wasn't really blown away by really anything that took place in this draft, but we'll obviously talk about that and so much more, and also leave a comment down below on what your thoughts of the 2026 NFL Draft were, what you think my opinions are, what your opinions are, whatever. Just let me know down in the comment section below. Also, most importantly, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up if you're already enjoying it, but if you're not a trusting individual, I don't blame you. I don't like things before I try them either, so wait till the end. I will remind you, and yeah, we'll come back together, and you can give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and if you did or didn't, let me know again down in the comment section below. But the NFL Draft is the best time of the year, and if you really just break it down to its core, the NFL Draft is really just, we're sitting back for 2-3 hours watching the commissioner walk on stage, say, the NFL team selects this player, this position, this school. That's it. That's all we're watching. And then we get some draft analysis from like Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, Field Yates, all those guys. But that's all we're really watching. There's not a lot happening on the screen. But you know what? We all love it. It's the greatest time of the year. Everybody wants to know who their team's drafting. And it makes it even that much more exciting when you know your team's drafting a quarterback, because the quarterback's the most important position in all of sports. If you don't have a quarterback, the chances of you being successful at the NFL level are slim to none. So the Las Vegas Raiders, having the first overall pick, made the easiest pick of the night and took Fernando Mendoza. And obviously, I got that one right. So we'll go over which picks I got right throughout the course of the mock draft. So then you could go like, oh, this is what his thoughts were on this, and whatever. But I got the Fernando Mendoza one, and I'm not going to sit here and pat myself on the back for that one because I felt that was pretty straightforward. To think that Fernando Mendoza, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, got Indiana their first undefeated season in school history, is going to go on to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. He's a nerd. Yes, he had a very funny ringtone. The Raiders called him. It's a very Fernando Mendoza-esque ringtone, the type of ringtone we would kind of expect from him. But it was just a very straightforward pick. He's got the makeup of everything you want in a potential franchise quarterback. Are there some concerns about the offense that they ran at Indiana? Yeah, I get those. What does it look like when he has to go off his first read and go to a second read? That's going to be something to look out for the next level. But one thing I really like about Fernando Mendoza, I've talked about this 1,000 times before, is that he's so unflappable. If he throws an interception, it's not going to sit. He's not going to dwell on it. Next drive, I think, again, 5 out of the 6 interceptions that he threw, maybe all 6 of them, he led Indiana to a scoring drive, the drive after throwing an interception. He moves on very quickly, and when you're a rookie quarterback on a team that's not going to be very good. Yes, the Raiders will be better than what they were last year, but that's not really saying a whole lot. Like, they're going to probably be around a 6 or 7 win team this year. So that's still better. That's a 4 to 5 game improvement from last year, but that's not going to be good. In a struggling team, you need to have that type of mindset. And I think he's a studious quarterback as well, which I think is also very important for a guy that young. And I just like his makeup. I like his makeup. I think it's a very good fit for the Raiders. So that was the most straightforward pick of the draft. The number 2 pick, though, a lot of controversy went around this pick because no one knew which direction the New York Jets were going to go. We knew it was going to be either one of David Bailey or Arvell Reese. If it was me making the pick for the Jets, I would have taken Arvell Reese. I think his ceiling's a lot higher. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot higher, but I think it's higher. But the problem is he doesn't have a set position. Is he an off-the-ball linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? Like, I saw him do an interview not too long ago where he talked about his edge rushing moves. He's just doing stuff. It's all instincts. He doesn't have a pass rush move to his brain because he's that raw in the position. But if he develops like everybody thinks he can, given his athletic tool set that he possesses, then he's going to be one of the best edge rushers or just linebackers in the NFL. But David Bailey's a natural edge rusher. He is an edge rusher. We know he's an edge rusher. There's no question about what position he is. He's an edge rusher. One of the fastest edge rushers in this class. A lot of his stuff getting after the quarterback is reliant on speed. And that was so important to Texas Tech last year as he led the nation in sacks, which is why the Jets wound up taking him 2nd overall. And again, it's not the direction I would have gone, but I'm not going to sit here and act like David Bailey's a bad pick. I do think leading up to the draft, it was very weird to hear David Bailey talk because he talked about the phone calls that he had with the Jets GM, but he kept calling him Monty, which for those of you who don't know, Monty is the GM of the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't know if he was getting them confused. I don't know what was going on there, but it was very weird. And I do also find this weird that there was all these reports that there's no leaks coming out of the Jets facility. There's no leaks coming out. They're keeping everything so close. No leaks. There's nothing getting out of here. Well, how did everybody know prior to the draft, out of the national media people like Daniel Jeremiah, Peter Schrager, Todd McShay, all those guys, how did they all know that the New York Jets were going to take David Bailey for 2nd overall? How did they all know that? if nothing was getting out for the New York Jets, then why would they all know that? And I do think that David Bailey's the more close to a finished product. He might have a lower ceiling, but his floor is higher than Arvell Reese because of the fact that Reese is so raw. So I get the move from the Jets' perspective in regards to a guy. You want a guy that can play right now at the edge rusher spot, and that's David Bailey. So that's where it makes sense for the Jets. As for the Arizona Cardinals at number 3, this was another move that was seen as kind of a controversial pick because most people out there would say the Arizona Cardinals' biggest need was right tackle. And you look at Francis Mauigoa, you look at Spencer Fano, you look at those guys, they're the right tackle spot, especially with Kelvin Beachum leaving. You've got Jonah Williams leaving in free agency. You have a hole there. Yes, Wilkinson's going to slot in there at right tackle, but he's not a guarantee. That's not who you don't feel comfortable with that at right tackle. So the Cardinals were looking at them. You look at one of the edge rushers, Arvell Reese available. Sonny Styles have been linked there, but they wound up going Jeremiah Love. And Jeremiah Love feels like an owner's pick, if that makes sense. I know there was reports that the coaching staff really likes him, and I can understand that. I mean, LaFleur came from LA. He worked in San Francisco. They had really good running games in there. They prioritized the running game, and Jeremiah Love's a difference maker out of the backfield. He's not a typical running back prospect. It didn't matter how many running backs they signed this offseason. They're not the same caliber of player as Jeremiah Love. Regardless if you love Tyler Algier, James Conner, Trey Benson, whoever, they're not the same caliber of running back. They're not going to add that same juice that Jeremiah Love can. And when you're an owner making the pick, a lot of those picks go down to we want someone to sell tickets. And Jeremiah Love is somebody who can sell tickets. In a perfect world, would they have liked to trade down and take one of the tackles? Probably. I do like that they got Chase Basantis in the 2nd round. I do think that was a very smart pick there at guard. But if you look at Jeremiah Love, most people would probably consider him to be the best player in the draft, if not the 2nd or 3rd best player in the draft. So if you're the Arizona Cardinals, you just go by the PPA approach, and you just take Jeremiah Love 3rd overall, and you move on with that. And I think the Cardinals' offensive line, I do think it's better than what, like if you're comparing to the Titans' offensive line, do I think the Arizona Cardinals' offensive line is worse than the Titans' offensive line? No, I don't. So I understand where they're coming from with the pick, and it just makes whoever the quarterback's life is easier. Having a guy like Jeremiah Love there and Carson Beck, they got him in the 3rd round, so we'll see how much he gets to play this year. Yeah, I get the Jeremiah Love pick in regards to the best player available. And I had Jeremiah, the first 3 picks in the draft I got right. I had Fernando Mendoza, David Bailey, and Jeremiah Love. Number 4, the Tennessee Titans, I didn't get right. And there are a lot of reports suggesting they wanted Jeremiah Love, which rightfully so. I mean, again, he's the best player in the draft by depending on who you ask, he's the best player in the draft. There are also talks about edge rushers. There's talk about Sonny Styles. And the Sonny Styles thing I kind of pushed aside because of the fact, like, everybody's like, oh, he's the Fred Warner. Robert Saleh wants his Fred Warner. But all the linebackers that Robert Saleh has had success with, they've been later round guys. So I don't really think that drafting Sonny Styles at 4 would make that sense. But if you look at Robert Saleh's history and going like, oh, he needs edge rushers, waves and waves of edge rushers. If David Bailey was there, had Jeremiah Love been off the board, they'd probably take Bailey. But again, like we talked about with Arvell Reese, we don't really know what he is at this point in time. So the Titans took Carnell Tate from Ohio State. And I said this on the drive on the night of the draft. Like, if you look at what Brian Dable is, he wants to throw the football. And he'll prioritize the core position and throw the football down the field. The Bills, when he was the OC there, pretty much passed to set up the run. He was perfectly content having likes of Devin Singletary and Zach Moss in the backfield. And you look with the Giants. Yes, they wound up going with Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley, but that all goes to Joe Shane. I'm sure Brian Dable had a say in that as well. So the drafting of Carnell Tate adds so much to Cam Ward because we always talked about, oh, they need more weapons on the outside. Jameer DK, Alec Iomanner, they're good options. They're good young options. DK made the Pro Bowl last year as a special teamer, so they've got good potential there, but they were late round guys. You get a true number 1 guy in this offense like a Carnell Tate. And I understand he was the number 2 guy at Ohio State. I don't really, do I think that holds weight in an argument on why you wouldn't draft somebody? I can understand it because of how much attention Jeremiah Smith takes off of Carnell Tate. Like, you look at Antonio Brown with Juju Smith-Schuster. Antonio Brown took so much attention off Juju Smith-Schuster, so he was able to have, a 1,300-yard season, and he's never gotten close to that since. So I understand it from that aspect, but if you also want to look at it from a standpoint of Justin Jefferson wasn't the number 1 wide receiver at LSU. That was Jamar Chase. So you can look at it from that aspect as well as, like, maybe he's just also very, very good. He didn't run a great 40 at the combine, but I think his long speed is very impressive. He had averaged 17.8 yards or something per catch last season. So I think Carnell Tate will fit what Brian Dable wants to do on the opposite side of the ball and give Cam Ward a true number 1 option out there. Now, there was a lot of conversation between him and Jordan Tyson in regards to who the best receiver in the draft was, especially leading up to it. But at this point in time, you can't be mad with Carnell Tate unless you wanted an edge rusher, unless you wanted Sonny Styles. But the main goal was to help Cam Ward. If that was the main goal, drafting Carnell Tate is a good move. Now, the Giants, BPA, best player available, they took Arvell Reese. I know a lot of people, including myself, thought Jordan Tyson, Caleb Downs, then you look at Sonny Styles in there, but Arvell Reese is just the best player available. And they did talk about, John Harbaugh came out and said they're going to play him at linebacker to start. And there's going to be a conversation about, do the Giants have too many edge rushers? But I don't think that's a thing. I don't think you can have too many edge rushers. Like we talked about with Robert Saleh, having waves and waves and waves of edge rushers, just being relentless at the pass rush, I think it'd be a good thing. But if you're going to start him off at linebacker, then we're going to have to see how that goes as well. And drafting him at 5th, would you draft Sonny Styles above him if you're going to play him at linebacker? Is that the conversation we're going to have here? But if you keep him as an edge rusher, there's a lot of talks about them trading Kayvon Thibodeau. There's a lot of talks with that because you drafted Abdul Carter 3rd overall last year. You got Brian Burns there. What's Kayvon Thibodeau's future? I saw some stuff about him being linked to the Saints, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. So if you want to play Arvell Reese at linebacker or an edge rusher, we're going to have to wait and see. This just felt like, with how much smoke was around Caleb Downs, it felt like one of the 5th or 10th pick would wind up being him, but we'll get to the 10th pick here shortly. And then number 6, the Chiefs traded up to draft Mansour Delane, the cornerback from LSU. Corner was their biggest need on their roster. I mean, you trade away Trent McDuffie. Jalen Watson went to LA as well. Brian Cook, the safety, he went to Cincinnati. So you had holes all over the secondary. And Mansour Delane, by all accounts, was the best cornerback in the draft class by a wide margin, especially given Jermon McCoy's ACL injury. Like, that kind of cemented him as like, okay, he's the best corner. So if he's the only corner that people are really having conversations about being a first-round guy, yes, there were some flyers on like Colton Hood, Chris Johnson. Like, there were flyers out there. But if you're the best corner in the draft by a wide margin, you might as well trade up to get him. Now, do I think Mansour Delane would have been available at 9? Yes. I don't think, given the players who are available, I don't think the Browns, I don't think the Commanders, and I don't think the Saints would have drafted Mansour Delane. I think the players that those 3 teams selected when the Browns traded back to 9, I think they were selected Fano at 9, or at 6, sorry. and the Commanders would have selected Sonny Styles, and the Saints would have selected Jordan Tyson. I think that would have been the order regardless of if the Saints traded up. So from that aspect, I'm not the biggest fan of moving up, but I understand it from an aspect is that when's the next corner going to go off the board? So if you think of it from that point, trade up to make sure you get your guy. And there's always that sentiment as well with the NFL draft. Control what you can control. If you want to sit back and wait and feel like your guy's there, you run the risk of one of 3 teams taking him, or someone like, I don't know, the Dallas Cowboys potentially trading up to 6 or 7 or 8 to draft him at that position. So you have to control what you can control. Don't sit back and wait. That's a very risky strategy. And if you feel like he's far and away the best corner, then you have to make a move to get him. Again, do I think he would have been available at 9? Yes, I do. But the need at corner was so big, so I understand why they would move up there. I did see some people talk about they thought that Arvell Reese would be available there. And I get that from a mindset of, oh, we traded up to draft Arvell Reese. We thought the Giants were going to take this player, yada, yada, yada. But if you're in the NFL draft and you're Brett Veach and you've been around the league long enough, you've been around this thing long enough, you know who, you didn't trade up guessing who the Giants were going to draft. You didn't trade up going like, oh, I think the Giants are drafting Caleb Downs. I think the Giants are drafting this player. No, you knew who the Giants were going to draft. And then you made the move to draft Mansour Delane. I don't think, again, that the Commanders or the Saints were going to draft him given the players that were available. If Jordan Tyson was off the board, if Sonny Styles was off the board, then yeah, maybe they do. But that part's the confusing, or not confusing, because I understand it from a mindset of someone else could take him, or you got to control what you control. But number 7, Sonny Styles, Commanders, one of the more straightforward picks in the draft. He's a Dan Quinn guy. If he was available, they were going to take him, and I had him go into the Commanders at 7. Pretty straightforward there. The Saints, Jordan Tyson keeps surrounding Tyler Shuck with weapons on the outside. Now, again, talent-wise, there's a conversation to be had about him being the best receiver in the draft. There's a real conversation about that. The amount of times he bailed out Sam Levitt last season at Arizona State, and the minimal times they played together, because Sam Levitt also left the season due to an injury, it's impressive. The catch radius is really ridiculous. The amount of one-handed catches he can make, the acrobatic catches that he can make, the drops went down each year throughout college, from Colorado all the way to Arizona State. If he's on the field, he is one of the best receivers in this draft class. He's probably the best receiver in this draft class, but that's the big thing. The best ability is availability. Now your top 2 receivers on your roster are often injured. So we're going to see how that affects them long-term, but I think in regards to surrounding Shuck with weapons, getting Travis Etienne this offseason is a very good move for them. Getting in Noah Fant as a backup tight end to Juwan Johnson's very good. Getting David Edwards from Buffalo to play guard, very good move. And now drafting Jordan Tyson. I like these moves for the New Orleans Saints. I really like them. I really dig them. And I'm hoping that it helps improve Shuck as this next season comes on. At the Browns, Spencer Fano, the tackle from Utah. I am taking Caden Proctor from Alabama. I almost said Iowa. But Caden Proctor felt more like a Cleveland Browns-esque pick, and like an Andrew Berry-esque pick, because they're very analytically driven. So they were never going to take Francis Mauigoa. They were never going to do that because he didn't test at the combine, so you could mark that as an incomplete test. And then you've got the whole thing with the back issue. They were not going to take him, and he's a natural right tackle. Fanu has played left tackle. He started off as a left tackle before transitioning to right tackle. But the thing was between Fano and Proctor, and I originally had Fano, but the thing was between Fano and Proctor, my mindset was Fano's arm length could be the separator between Proctor and Fano, and you could make an argument that Proctor has a higher ceiling than Fano. Do I think Fano's the better player right now? Yes, I think he's one of the most athletically gifted tackles in this draft. And there's also that concern, do you push him inside the guard at some point? That's going to be up in the air, but from an athletic standpoint and from a fit standpoint, I think he'll fit what Todd Monken wants to do running the ball. I like the fit. But again, my thought process was Proctor. I think Fano's better, but I thought the Browns, just given what I think about the Cleveland Browns, would have taken Proctor there. But then at number 10, speaking of Francis Mauigoa, the Giants take him here. There's a lot of reports leading into the draft that the Giants wanted to leave the draft with a weapon or a defensive player and not an offensive lineman. That's what a lot of things were suggesting at this point in time. And Mauigoa, with the back issue, that was one of those things where I kind of sat back and kind of struggled with in regards to, I don't know what his long-term, is this going to affect his draft stock at all? Is this going to hurt him? Is it not going to affect him at all? We're going to have to wait and see. But the Giants, they brought in Daniel Faalele. They brought him in from Baltimore, so he's familiar with John Harbaugh. So they have him at guard, but Mauigoa can play guard. You also brought LMA. I can always struggle saying his name. Jermaine Elemaner. I'm sorry, he's there. They brought him back, so you got him at right tackle. So it's just a matter of where you want to play Mauigoa. In regards to a physicality standpoint, he's the most physical bully linemen in this draft, regards to the tackle position. Now, if you kick him inside the guard, that's fine. But there's also going to be that conversation. Do you think Vega Ioane is a better guard than Francis Mauigoa? Like, are you drafting Mauigoa with the idea of taking him as a tackle or taking him as a guard? I didn't remember what they said when they announced the pick, but that's going to be a conversation definitely had with the Giants. But leaving the first round with Arvell Reese and Francis Mauigoa, the first team that had two picks in this draft, you can't really be mad at it, especially after the whole Dexter Lawrence fiasco, and now he's in Cincinnati. Did the Bengals overpay? Whatever. That remains to be seen. We're going to have to wait and see on that, but Mauigoa definitely helps protect Jackson Dart, who already doesn't give a shit about his own well-being anyways, so might as well just get another offensive lineman to help keep him up like for as long as you physically can. But getting him in at 10, I don't mind it. And then you have the Cowboys trading up, Caleb Downs. I was shocked he went past the Giants. And the Cowboys, they traded up. Everybody said the Cowboys are trading up, and they traded up. It's crazy. And they held on to pick 20 in the process as well. That was the big conversation. Like, if you're a team like the Cowboys, who at that point in time, I believe their next pick after 20 didn't come until like pick 90 or something. I can't remember the exact number. But if you pick from 20 to 90 something, you're not going to want to trade that last pick. It doesn't matter how good the players, unless you're getting a generational prospect. But in a draft like this, you're not going to spend that second first round pick to move up into the top 6 or whatever. So they stayed pat at 12. They let the board fall to them, and they took the guy that probably was the highest player on their board in Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs might not be the physical specimen of a lot of safeties that we've seen recently, like Kyle Hamilton, but if you look at like Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu, and I'm not sitting here saying Caleb Downs is going to become these guys. I'm not putting that massive thing on him. I don't know, the massive weight on his shoulders for that. He could like that, but the safeties that we see nowadays, they don't all need to be physical specimens. Nick Imanwari last year, they're not all physical specimens. And Caleb Downs is so smart. He's a coach on the field. Like, you had all these reports coming out about how he was surprising coaches with how knowledgeable he was and how good he was on the whiteboard. Like, all of that stuff's so important for Christian Parker. He's needing leaders on that defensive side of the ball. And the Cowboys secondary was ass last year. It was ass. And Caleb Downs instantly improves that. Arguably one of the top 5 player in the draft. And you get him at 11. With the Giants, with a team that was heavily linked with them, passing on him twice, that's going to add some extra motivation for him in there as well. The Dolphins at 12 trading back with the Cowboys. They took Caden Proctor from Alabama. I almost said Iowa, but he's a Packers pick. Like a big physical specimen at tackle. He's a monster on the left side. The only issue I have with Caden Proctor is that why are we still talking about him having that, like, there's some rawness still to his game. But he's a 3-year starter at Alabama at left tackle. It's not like he's been jolted around position. I don't like that. That doesn't make me feel that comfortable. But if you're the Miami Dolphins, you need to improve your offensive line. I had them taking Spencer Fano. I had them taking Francis Mauigoa as well. Like, they needed to improve their offensive line. Everybody talking about, like, oh, they need a wide receiver. They trade Jalen Waddle, yada, yada. That's not what the Packers do. John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, these are Packers guys. They're not going to draft a wide receiver early. And they're going to go off the line like the Packers do, or edge rusher, or corner. Like, that's just what they do. And so drafting Caden Proctor at 12, it looked weird as like a fit-wise, because I always thought like the Lions or the Browns would be a team to really push on for Caden Proctor. But in regards to a physical tool standpoint, there's not a lot of better tackles in this draft than Caden Proctor. But yeah, he goes 12. Then the shocker of the draft. So we've had 2 trades to this point, and it's the Chiefs trading up from 9 to 6, and the Cowboys trading up from 12 to 11. So a pretty wow moment. So we're really in for that wow moment. And then the Rams took Ty Simpson. And I can't lie, I was not shocked by this. Anybody who's been paying attention to the NFL offseason and Ty Simpson, the Rams were going to be a team constantly linked with them. And they were going to be talking about, like, oh, they were going to take him at pick 29. Now they're going to have pick 29. Well, if that's the only, like, they were going to take him then, why wouldn't they not take him at 13? It might be a reach. Like, people would consider that and look at a reach. But I talked about this in Mock Draft 2.0. If you're a team that, I don't want to say in need of a quarterback, because the Rams have Matt Stafford, he just won the MVP. But if you're a team that is wanting a quarterback, this is, again, controlling what you can control. You overdraft guys like that. I said this in Mock Draft 2.0 with the Browns, because I had Ty Simpson going 6th overall the Browns. You look at Mitch Trubisky. You look at Daniel Jones. These are 2 guys that teams said they overdrafted, and they were right, because these guys they did not develop into the good at those teams. And Mitch Trubisky's still a backup, and Daniel Jones just signed a $100 million contract, so it's very give and take with that. But if you're a quarterback, if you're a team that wants a quarterback, you draft them when you draft them. You don't run the risk of having someone else take them if you're a team that does that. Now, in that same breath, if you're the Rams, why would you not just add to a roster that most people consider to be the most ready to win a Super Bowl? Why not add a Mekhi Lemon? Why not add a Kenyon Sadiq? Why not add a tackle like Monroe Freeling? Why not add an edge rusher? Ruben Bain was right there. Why not just add something to an already Super Bowl ready roster? That's the part where it gets kind of like head scratching a little bit. Ty Simpson, I really like Ty Simpson. I've never hidden the fact that I like Ty Simpson. And I think from a fit-wise, this works perfectly. And the 15 starts thing, that's a big concern for Ty Simpson. No one wants to go, you look at a quarterback that has 15 starts in college, there's not a great track record of having success at the next level. We brought up Trubisky before. Anthony Richardson is the most famous one. I think he had 13 coming into the NFL. But the difference is between Simpson and Richardson and Trubisky is that Simpson's not going to play his rookie year. He's just not. Unless something terrible happens to Matt Stafford, and I'll knock on wood for that, but unless something terrible happens to Stafford, Simpson's not going to play. So if you look at the Colts with Anthony Richardson, the Bears with Mitch Trubisky, Mike Glennon was the quarterback for the Bears when Mitch Trubisky got drafted. They just signed him that offseason. Mike Glennon, for how much you may love or hate Mike Glennon's not good enough to hold a starting job the entire season. Everybody knows that. It's Mike freaking Glennon. Even at that point in time, it was seen as an expensive buy to get Mike Glennon in from Tampa Bay. I don't remember who the Colts quarterback was when Anthony Richardson got drafted. I believe it was either Joe Flacco or Gardner Minshew. I can't remember exactly. But regardless, these are not guys that are going to hold that starting job for the entire season. Like if you brought in Kirk Cousins like the Raiders, I could see Fernando Mendoza sitting for a while with Kirk Cousins because Kirk Cousins is a good enough quarterback to hold that job and allow Fernando Mendoza to develop. I understand the whole trial by fire thing, sink or swim, but sometimes it's good to have those guys in place. And I think having Simpson behind Matt Stafford, and I don't think Stafford will be sitting there babying him the entire time. Matt Stafford's too old for that at this point in time. He wants to win another Super Bowl. He wants to get a second Super Bowl. He's got a first MVP. He's already got one Super Bowl. Why not get another one? So from an aspect of Ty Simpson, the limited amount of starts is concerning. Yes, I do agree with that. And especially if he was drafted by a team like the Cardinals where he'd probably play early. But a team like the Rams, with the structure in place that they have, with Matt Stafford there, with the weapons that they have, I like the fit. Now, is it a reach? Yeah, I would say it's a reach. But again, control what you can control. The Cardinals were going to take him once they traded back into the first round. There was going to be a lot of conversation about who would take Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson is a lot better than what people on social media are giving him credit for. Again, I don't mind the pick, and I wasn't really surprised by it. Like this was going to be like the big wow moment. I wasn't surprised about it. It was something that I thought was very much on the cards, and they wound up taking him. I really like Ty Simpson, and I hope he does well with the Rams. I think he's a very good schematic fit for the Rams. And then you move on to 14, the Ravens, Vega Ioane. They needed a guard. They took a guard, best guard in the draft. I'm going to try and speed up a little bit here because now we're starting to get closer to the middle part of the first round, and then we're already at a half hour, so I might as well speed this up a little bit. But the Buccaneers, Ruben Bain, obviously, if he's there, you take him. I was kind of surprised the Ravens passed on him, but they needed a guard. Yes, you brought in John Simpson, but you need that other guy opposite of him. So Vega Ioane is the best guard in the draft. You take him. Ruben Bain, if he's there, you take him. I think the Bucs were going to trade back had he not been there, but with Ruben Bain sitting right there in their laps, like, okay, we're taking him. And I said this during the live, when I was doing the live thing, Ruben Bain looks like he could have played with Leroy Selman. He looks like he was a part of those 72 Bucs teams. Did you see him just snatch that hat right off the stage, or right off the little stand and put it on? Like, that dude's just all about football. And I think that's what Todd Bowles will really want in his defense, because they need to get more consistent as a pass rush. And Ruben Bain, if not for the arm length, would have been a certified top 5 pick. He's the ultimate disruptor coming off the edge. And with him being there at 15, just made all the sense in the world for Tampa Bay. 16, the Jets, Kenyon Sadiq, tight end. He thought he got prank called. He did not want to go to the Jets. He thought he was getting prank called. I thought this would be Mekhi Lemon or Omar Cooper, which we'll get to that in a little bit. But Kenyon Sadiq, they need weapons on the outside. Kenyon Sadiq's a versatile player who can play both inside and outside. He's not got insane size, about 6'3", about 245, 250, but he's a willing blocker, and that's what you kind of need. You might not be the most physically imposing guy like a George Kittle or a Rob Gronkowski or something, but you still are a willing blocker, and that's what you need at the tight end. Sometimes you just need at the tight end position. Then you got 17, the Lions, Blake Miller. That one, I was stuck between Monroe Freeling and Blake Miller. if you want to go from an aspect of their time out with Taylor Decker leaving, the logical thinking was they need a left tackle because Taylor Decker requests his release. They let him go. They obliged, and then he's gone. So they need a left tackle. But there's a lot of stuff saying they're going to move Penei Sewell to left tackle. So you want to look at it from that aspect. Then you draft Blake Miller. Blake Miller is one of the most experienced offensive linemen in this draft. Most of his starts coming at right tackle. I want to say his 48 starts at right tackle or something at Clemson. So it just makes sense to naturally slot him in right there. If you wanted what do you call it? A flyer on a player or someone you could think could get to the highest level, then Monroe Freeling would be your guy. Caden Proctor felt like the most natural fit, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Alabama ran a shit ton of screens to Caden Proctor. I say a shit ton, like 2, but still, the fact that he caught some passes out of the backfield, I think that's what kind of got in everybody's mind that Caden Proctor's a Lions guy. But from a right tackle standpoint, the most experienced right tackle in this draft, take him at 17 and move on from there. 18, the Vikings. Now, I'm not going to lie. This, to me, was the most surprising pick of the draft. This was the most surprising one because I thought if Dylan Thieneman was there, they would snatch him up in a heartbeat. And that a lot of that might have to do with a lot of that Harrison Smith was there for so many years. Maybe it's that. But I just thought Dylan Thieneman fit so much of what they want to do from that safety spot, and they need help in the secondary. So that's where I thought they would go. Now, the Vikings do need some serious help on the defensive line. They made some cuts this offseason to get so their defensive line was trash. But the problem is, I didn't think it'd be Caleb Banks. Back before the combine, or right around the combine, Caleb Banks at 18 would have not seen that crazy. But then all this stuff that came out again about his foot and how big he is, that's kind of concerning. So I didn't even really consider Caleb Banks for the first round. And I didn't really consider a lot of defensive tackles for the first round this year. There wound up being 2. We'll get to the other one later. But from a size, like he's what you want a defensive tackle to look like. And the Vikings play a 3 front. He would fit in perfectly there. They got Dom Orange from Iowa State in there as well to be the nose guard. So you're getting 2 very good options on the defensive line. It just felt like this was destined to be Dylan Thieneman. And maybe that's stupid from my part, and I'm not going to sit here and act like they did need a defensive tackle or anything, because they definitely did. But if they did draft one, I thought it'd be a Peter Woods type player. I didn't think it'd be a Kane McDonald unless they wanted that nose guard early, like, because that's why they drafted Dom Orange. But it just struck me as a little bit of a... That move surprised me more than anything. Because, again, Dylan Thieneman's right there. Caleb Banks' foot thing. That surprised me. But I do think from a fit standpoint it works. I just thought it was a little earlier than what I was expecting for Caleb Banks, especially given who was all available. Panthers at 19, Monroe Freeling. This felt like Kenyon Sadiq for the longest time, but they need tackles. Keep improving the offensive line. Keep building around Bryce Young. Monroe Freeling's got an insanely high ceiling, so take him here at 19. Move on. Then you got 20. Cowboys. Dylan Thieneman felt like an option here before they drafted Caleb Downs, because there's connections to the University of Oregon through the Cowboys staff, so Dylan Thieneman made sense, but they already drafted Caleb Downs, so they're not going to draft 2 safeties. But then you get the phones ringing, and they trade back with the Eagles. And I'm always somebody who does not like interdivision trades. I'm not a big fan of them. I never have been. They pain me to my core. We'll talk about one here in a little bit. But trading back with the Eagles, they draft Mekhi Lemon. And I liked the one back in 2021 when you have the Eagles and Cowboys trading up to screw the Giants. They screwed the Giants over because they knew the Giants wanted Devontae Smith. Everybody knew that. Cowboys were sitting at 10, Eagles at 12, Giants at 11. Eagles trade up with the Cowboys, draft Devontae Smith. Cowboys trade back, get Micah Parsons. Giants get stuck with Kadarius Toney at 20. So that's that. You kind of screw over the Giants in the process. In this one, you screw over the Steelers, especially with and that's kind of mean given the fact they're hosting the draft and everything. They told Mekhi Lemon they were going to draft him. He thought he was going to be a Steeler, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Why is Philadelphia calling me?" And he winds up being an Eagle. I thought that they were going to take Max Giannichor. I didn't even think, when I was doing the live thing, I didn't even clock that Mekhi Lemon was even there. Because he had a thunderstorm and tornado warnings going off, so I didn't even think about it. But I did find that really funny that all transpired. And Mekhi Lemon being at 20, that kind of surprised me. And I do like the idea of what they can do on the outside. It just felt like an offensive lineman pick for the Eagles. That's what it felt like for the longest time. They're going to take an offensive lineman, but they do need receivers. And there's a lot of smoke around. A.J. Brown's going to get traded on June 1st to the Patriots. So there's a lot of stuff around that. So it makes sense. But I always feel interdivision trades are weird. I've always been weirded out by that. Regardless if it works out for both teams, it weirds me out. I can't help it. I'm sorry. But it did screw over the Steelers, who drafted Max Giannichor, who's the next best tackle in this draft class. He's a natural right tackle. Played right tackle at Arizona State. He's only been playing football since junior college. Like, he moved from Nigeria to LA when he was 13 years old, and then started playing football in junior college, and just put forth some very impressive stuff while at Arizona State. He's very raw. He's raw, but if you look at the Steelers, who have Broderick Jones, who's got I'm blanking on the injury right now, I'm sorry, but got an injury that could keep him out a lot longer than what initially thought. So they're talking about moving Troy Fautano from right tackle to left tackle. So that opens up the spot at right tackle where Max Ionitor slots right in with the Steelers pick. But then 22, Chargers took Akeem Mesidor from Miami. Ruben Bain's running mate down there. Very productive edge rusher, just older. He's 25 years old. He's older. I thought this would be a situation for a trade down spot. I thought Chase Basantis from Texas A&M would make a lot of sense for the Chargers on their front line. They did draft the offensive lineman from Florida in the second round, so they got that option there. But they did need edge rusher help. Like Khalil Mack, they brought back. He's not getting any younger. And Tuli Tuipulotu is going to need a long-term running partner on the edge. Akeem Mesidor, again, though he's older, ultra productive. If he wasn't as old as he was, if he wasn't 25 years old, then we might be talking about a potential top 10 pick. But that's not the reality in the Chargers. He falls right in their lap at 22. Cowboys at 23 from the Eagles pick. They take Malachi Lawrence from UCF. Had this one in the mock draft. And a lot of this had to go to the connections to their coaching staff. They brought in Dimitri Brim from UCF, who's on the coaching staff with when Malachi Lawrence was down there. So you've got that inner insight of a player. And there was going to be a lot of talks of Keldrick Falk in there as well. But Malachi Lawrence has a very high ceiling. Tested very well. So there's that ceiling in place there. And the Cowboys like those ceilings. They like this seeing what a player could be. You look at some of the offensive linemen that they've drafted in recent years as well. They like drafting those kind of guys. So leaving the first round with Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence, I really like that from the Dallas Cowboys perspective. I really like that. Now, yes, they brought in Rashawn Gary, but you can never have, again, too many edge rushers. So moving on to pick 24, Browns, Casey Concepcion. Depending on who you ask, the best receiver available. You have a conversation about Omar Cooper, Denzel Boston in there as well. But they take Casey Concepcion at 24. If you look at what the Ravens did with Todd Monk and you look at what they did with Georgia, they like those speedy wide receivers. And Casey Concepcion, out of the top options, is the quickest, twitchiest receiver out of those guys. So I like the fit naturally with Casey Concepcion and what the Browns are going to do offensively. So leaving the first round with Spencer Fano and Casey Concepcion, I like that move from the Cleveland Browns. Then 25, the Bears, right into their lap. Dylan Thieneman, safety from Oregon. They needed a safety. They got the best safety available, and they didn't even think twice about it. There were some talks about the Bears need to trade up to get Thieneman, and they just stood pat and just took him at 25. They brought in Cam Lewis. They brought in Kobe Bryant, and I like Cam Lewis a lot, former Buffalo Bill, but he's not a starter. He's a good option to bring it off the bench. He's a good versatile piece in the secondary, but he's not a starter. So I would look at Dylan Thieneman, take that spot, and then you bring in Cam Lewis as that versatile option. Could play outside, could play nickel, could play safety, all that different things. He even lined up at linebacker sometimes for the Buffalo Bills. So I like Cam Lewis as that versatile option, just not as the starter, if that makes sense. So Thieneman at 25 makes all the sense in the world. Then 26. Trade down. Buffalo Bills, trade down. Shocker. Everybody saw that coming. But only 2 spots. They only trade down 2 spots. The Houston Texans trade up to take Keelan Rutledge, guard from Georgia Tech. There was going to be one of these guards go in the first round that no one really knew which one it was going to be. It was either going to be Chase Basantis, who I brought up before from Texas A&M, or Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. It was going to be one of those two. It wound up being Rutledge. The Texans need more help on the offensive line. The main goal from the Texans, yes, they could improve their defensive line. They could strengthen a strength. And they did get Caden McDonald in the second round, which is a great pick for them. But you get a guard here to help get the best out of CJ Stroud once again. The dude is struggling mentally, physically, whatever you want to call it. That's what CJ Stroud's doing right now. And there's a lot of talks about people like I remember, what was it during the Patriots game? 31 other quarterbacks would have not had the Texans in this spot. You need to get the best out of CJ Stroud again. And the best way to do that is continuing to improve the offensive line. And Keelan Rutledge as a guard, I would have probably leaned tackle here, with Caleb Lomu still being available, but you would probably looked at more of a right tackle from Houston as well going in that spot. But guard, versatile player, I like Keelan Rutledge going to the Texans. Again, you just need offensive linemen in there. And then 27, you have the Miami Dolphins trading up with the 49ers to take Chris Johnson from San Diego State. Again, talked about this before. It's a Packers draft. John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, they're Packers guys. They're going to draft like the Packers. There was a lot of smoke around the Green Bay Packers. Really liked Chris Johnson. Again, who coaches and who's the general manager for the Dolphins? Former Packers guys. So if the Packers like him, why wouldn't these guys like him? So then they take him at 27, and it fills an immediate need. Very experienced player on the outside. And again, you leave the first round with a tackle and a corner. Very Packers draft, but it definitely improves the roster. Then 28, Bills trade down again. This one goes to the Patriots. And this is where this is division round. This is divisional trade again. I don't like divisional trades, interdivision trades. I hate them. I don't want to help out the Patriots. Now, I will sit back and say this. The pick that they got from the Patriots wound up being Skylar Bell from UConn. So I really like it from that aspect. So the Patriots did help the Bills out in that way as well. But initially, when I was watching the draft, it was infuriating because I never want to help out the Patriots and fill a need that they have. And you look at Caleb Lomu from Utah, they need a tackle. Everybody talked about the Patriots need a tackle or edge rusher, or just go best player available if they really wanted to. But they needed a tackle. They couldn't control the edges in the Super Bowl at all. Will Campbell got blown up. Morgan Moses only getting older. Get a guy in Caleb Lomu who can play outside. You can also kick him inside if you need to, but you need a tackle. He's the best one on the board. You trade up to get him, even though it was at the expense of the Bills. But again, I do appreciate the Skylar Bell pick with that one, so I do appreciate that. And then 29, the Kansas City Chiefs, they took Peter Woods, defensive tackle from Clemson. He was a guy who was starting to build back up into the first round. Former top 10 pick, like our former top 10 pick, preseason top 10 pick. Widely considered to be one of the best interior defensive linemen in the draft class. I guess he still is now, but I guess that value chart's going down from where it was. Like, best interior defensive tackle prior to the draft, like last year, was up here. It's like we got down here at the draft process. But Chiefs needed help on the defensive line. Steve Spagnuolo wants to improve his defensive line. This is where I thought like a Bain early on would have made a lot of sense. But again, Delane makes a lot of sense there. Keldrick Falk being available, setting the tone on the edge, securing the edges, being good run defender. I thought that would make sense. But again, Peter Woods, if you're just going by PPA in regards to the defensive line, Peter Woods is probably that. He's not anywhere as big as Caleb Banks, but in regards to a physical tool set for the shorter version of Caleb, because Caleb Banks is 6'6", Peter Woods is 6'2". He's a very technical defensive tackle, very skilled defensive tackle, and he'll fit really nicely next to Chris Jones in this defense. Then you got pick 30, the Jets. Trade back into the first round, take Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana. There's part of me that thinks the Bills were trying to take Omar Cooper with the 31st pick, which is why they wound up trading back with the Tennessee Titans, sorry. But the Jets taking Omar Cooper made all the sense in the world. They were linked with him constantly throughout the process. I had him going at 16. They wound up taking him at 30. Regardless of when they taken him, he's a very good receiver, very physical receiver. He's not going to go down easily. He's an absolute dog on the outside. And getting him with Kenyon Sadiq and getting David Bailey early, this is a good first round for the New York Jets. It's a good first round. I mean, the last time they had 3 first-round picks, they took Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, and Jermaine Johnson. Now, only one of them still on the roster, and his future's in question. But they all turned out to be good players. So for the Jets' sake, not for my sake, 'cause I hate the Jets, but for their sake, let's hope that they're all turned out to be solid pros with Geno Smith there at quarterback so they could get or maybe they want him to be bad so they could get good quarterback next year, which is not going to be good anyways, but regardless, that's beside the point. Titans again, trade up with the Bills, who go back in the second round, so the Titans take Keldrick Falk, edge rusher, high ceiling, younger prospect, massive size, great run defender, needs to still improve as an edge rusher, or as a pass rusher, sorry. There's a ceiling there that needs to be met. He hasn't reached it yet. Preseason top 10 pick. Now we're having the conversation about what he can do for the Titans at the next level. Again, Robert Saleh loves his edge rushers. So you feel a need from Brian Dable's perspective and Robert Saleh's perspective. So you can't really be too mad at that from the Tennessee Titans. And the final pick, I had to look down real quick. The final pick was the Seattle Seahawks taking Jadarian Price from Notre Dame. The Seahawks have done this before. I know Jadarian Price, if you're talking about reaches in the draft, some people would say this is the biggest reach in the draft next to Ty Simpson. Not having 0 starts in college, sitting behind a guy like Jeremiah Love, it can be hard to judge a prospect like that. But with Kenneth Walker leaving for Kansas City, with Zach Charbonnet coming off a torn ACL, which he got late in the year, they don't really have a running back, and that's very important to what Mike McDonald wants from his offense. And as a defensive-minded head coach, he needs a running game. And Jadarian Price, again, is this a reach? Probably, but I remember a couple years ago, geez, a decade now, they drafted Rashad Penny from San Diego State, when a lot of people were like, well, why did they draft a running back that early? And that's what John Schneider kind of does. And there was a lot of talks about corners. Trading Stukes from Arizona was an option here. Emmanuel McNeil Warren was also here from Toledo. These are safeties. I mean, Stukes is kind of a corner safety hybrid, but whatever. But it does fill an immediate need for the Seattle Seahawks. And I can't be mad at it. I understand why people think it's a reach, but I do think he's a very good player. And that sums up the first round. That sums up it for the first round. Now, for teams that didn't have first-round picks, the 49ers, they took Dejon Stribling from Ole Miss with the second pick, with their first pick of the second round. And there was a stuff going around about asking John Lynch about why he overdrafts players. He didn't seem to really like that option, so I'm going to leave it here. I'm not going to question John Lynch on that because I don't want to get in trouble. But at the Bills, they took TJ Parker with their first pick of the second round. I do like how the Bills draft wound up. I'm not going to sit here and go like, oh, the Bills need to draft a receiver all the time, because they were never going to do that. I can't sit here and be mad at the Bills not drafting a receiver. I know I thought my brain wanted me to think they were drafting Omar Cooper. There was talks about them potentially trading up for Concepcion, but in my brain, it was always they're going to draft a defender. And TJ Parker is the best edge rusher available at that spot. R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, from a fit standpoint and a connection standpoint, made a lot of sense there as well, but he went to the Chiefs at 40. I liked the Bills draft. I did really like the Bills draft. There's a new defense they're coming in here, so we're going to see how it all fluctuates this year, but I can't be mad at how the Bills drafted this year, especially in those later rounds. I thought the Bills had a really good day 3, which I'm excited to see how this draft class pans out. So, yeah, that's my full reaction to the 2026 NFL draft first round with some second round picks in there. I do hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. We will have a video coming out for you shortly about where the quarterbacks wound up in this draft class as well, quarterback selection, reaction kind of thing. So we'll go through all the different selections of the quarterbacks. There were some surprising moves from that aspect as well, but I do hope you enjoyed this subdued version of Low, or not live reaction Low, so like a week process, everything that went on. So hope you enjoyed. If you did not, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. Of course, again, make sure to check out all the links down in the description below. Leave a comment as well on if you liked the video, hated the video, love my opinions, hate my opinions, what your opinions are. Let me know. Also, most importantly, check out the blog post at LoganBlackmanShow.com, Mock Draft 3.0, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you did not, I sincerely apologize, but make sure if you did to give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, I've been Logan Blackman. I will see you guys later. Peace.